During the cell signaling process, various ions they act as a messenger, and one of the prominent ion is calcium, where it acts as a messenger. Now, these ions they can act both as extracellular, that is, then they are known as the first messenger, or intracellular, when they are called as second messenger. It regulates the calcium ion, it regulates the diverse array of cellular function from cell division and differentiation to cell death. That is, these are the important, crucial function which the cell perform, and who regulates it? The calcium ion. They regulate this, and this is why we study this in detail. Now, calcium concentration in the plasma, as well as in the intracellular and intercellular environment, is under a tight control and hormonal control. So, since they are signaling, and those signals, calcium concentration, they are, as a matter of fact, controlled by the hormone as well as the neural control, nervous control, and other mechanisms which were involved to control the concentration of these ions. Now, how calcium signaling occurs in neuron? In neuron, calcium signaling is a major second messenger. Remember, calcium can act as a first messenger or a second messenger, and in the case of nerves, it is a second messenger because it is extracellular, outside the cell, and is activated by various neurotransmitters. There are different neurotransmitter molecules like dopamine and glutamine, which, as a matter of fact, control the signaling by calcium in the neuron. And another important physiological role for calcium signaling are muscle contraction, cellular motility, fertilization, cell growth and proliferation, and learning and memory. Cells memory and the learning, the mechanism is also controlled by the calcium, as well as synaptic plasticity and the secretion of saliva. That is the important physiological role which calcium plays in this. Now, what are the biochemical roles? These include regulating enzyme activities, different enzyme activities that is activated or regulated by the concentration of calcium ion. And once the enzyme activity is regulated, it means the signaling is there. Similarly, permeability of ion channels, that is, the ions which are permeable to the membrane, it is controlled by the concentration of calcium, and activity of ion pumps. In the cell, outside and inside, various ions, they travel, they go in, they go out by various ion pumps, and that is also controlled by the calcium concentration. Similarly, components of the cytoskeleton, that is the cellular skeleton, उसके जो parts हैं, इसका जो skeleton है, that is also controlled, physiological control, by the concentration of calcium. Now, signaling occurs when the cell is stimulated. Definitely, when the cell receives a stimuli, there is a signaling, and it releases calcium ions from intercellular stores, जहाँ पे इसने स्टोर किया हुआ कैल्शियम इंटरसेलुलर सेल के अंदर, और when calcium enters the cell through plasma membrane. देखें ना, जब प्लाज्मा मेम्ब्रेन के थ्रू कैल्शियम जो है उसके एंटर होगा तो उसकी कंसंट्रेशन जो है वो इंक्रीज होगी. प्लाज्मा मेम्ब्रेन आयन चैनल के थ्रू भी ये जा सकता है. So these are the different mechanisms. Another important thing is calcium-induced calcium release, CICR. Now the influx of limited amount of calcium, the amount of calcium which goes through the open channel in the plasma, as we have discussed previously, that there are open channel in the plasma membranes and they induce opening of ranodine receptors in the ER. These are the receptors जो कि कैल्शियम को रिसीव करते हैं, उससे जुड़ते हैं, and causing the release of calcium ions into cytosol. साइटोसोल में जो बाउंड कैल्शियम है उसको रिलीज कर देते हैं, उसको छोड़ देते हैं. एंड दिस फिनोमिना इज कॉल्ड कैल्शियम इंड्यूस्ड कैल्शियम रिलीज, CICR, because this is induced by calcium, the release of calcium by the concentration of calcium. Now, the calcium concentrations, let's imagine in the cell, how it will be. Will it be constantly increasing or decreasing? But we know that Mr. Barrett, he proposed a model of calcium signals. And this model was once thought to merely rise in the cell to the signal and drop when the signal was over. That is, just as if the signal is there, the calcium concentration in the cell will rise, but then after the work it will drop. That is, rise and drop when the signal was over. But however, Barrett, he demonstrates that the calcium level, it oscillates. ये नहीं है कि एक मर्तबा ये हो गया बस, नहीं, it oscillates. It makes oscillation. It makes oscillation. Increase, decrease, increase, decrease, increase, decrease. And remember what happened when there are oscillation in the cell. It means that cell will maintain a some level of calcium. अगर आप उसकी average लें rise और fall की, तो there will be a level of concentration. The purpose may be, the purpose of this oscillation may be to protect cell components, कि cell को component को बचाना है. Because अगर ये हो कि cell वो rise हो जाए और फिर जनाब बस fall हो जाए जब तक signal जो है down हो जाए, तो वो उसमें काफ़ी रहेगा. But the purpose of oscillation is to protect cell components. Cell components को protect करना है. They are, which are sensitive to high calcium, or perhaps to create waves of calcium in the cell. That is the two purpose. One is to protect the cell, and second is to create the waves of cell concentration ion in the cell. That is, increase, decrease, increase, decrease. And in this case, the cell will constantly be controlled, receiving signals, and will perpetuate.